Welcome to the Best Little Town Podcast, your go-to source for everything happening in the town of Bedford's local government. Whether it's new initiatives or important decisions shaping our town's future, you'll hear it right here. This podcast is dedicated to keeping our residents informed and engaged.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Best Little Town broadcast, brought to you by the Town of Bedford in cooperation with our media partners, Media Squatch. My name is Bart Warner. It's my privilege to serve as town manager, and I'm here to provide you with a recap of the town council meeting, which took place last night, Tuesday, August 27th. And I'll jump right in by noting that I began the meeting by mentioning that town offices will be closed on Monday, September 2nd for the Labor Day holiday. In appearances before council last night, we had Reverend Joe Whiting from Shamblessburg Baptist Church, who came to offer a word of encouragement to council. In addition to offering a prayer, he noted George Washington's example of humility in public service. Council members in their comments section last night kind of went around the dais. Todd Foreman joined us virtually. He's on the road working, I think, in Florida last night, but did take time out to fulfill his duty to the community. He thanked the large number of attendees we had present last night. Did have a very good in-person turnout for the meeting, and it was really good to see more of our neighbors and interact with you directly. Councilman Bruce Johansson offered his compliments to the organizers of the Bedford County Fair, which took place this past weekend. Vice Mayor C.G. Stanley offered thanks to Mr. Whiting for his comments. Councilman Haley complimented Ann Cantrell and the finance staff on receiving a Government Finance Officers Association award for our budgeting and financial reporting efforts. Stacy was also kind enough to mention me in his report and ask for prayers for my family as we've been dealing with some complications that have been resolved. Councilman Bob Carson also extended his compliments regarding the fair. Councilman Darrell Updike took some time last night to note the presence of our local American Legion post, which is named the Board Kennedy post, and mentioned in particular the background of that. It's named for two citizens of Bedford who served and gave their lives. Mr. Board was the first Bedford County soldier who perished in World War I, and Mr. Kennedy was someone who served in World War II and gave his life. Mr. Updike recounted Mr. Kennedy's service in the Marine Corps in the Pacific Theater. He was killed in action, and his body was buried over there back in 1942. There will be an event coming up September 28th this year where his body will be returned to Bedford County. And that's obviously many years of effort on behalf of his family and loved ones. They will return his earthly remains to his home and inter them in a resting place there. We're also going to work on a proclamation related to that event and reach out to our other colleagues to see what we can do to honor the memory of Mr. Kennedy and certainly reflect the sacrifice of his family and hopefully provide them some comfort and remembrance. Mayor Black noted that the dedication of the Bedford Get Together mural above Centertown Plaza was a great event that occurred Sunday a week ago, I believe. He also passed on his congratulations and compliments to county personnel associated with the county fair. And he noted that the World Professional Disc Golf Championship took place this past weekend in Bedford County, and probably saw some people you didn't know walking around the streets, and those may have been our guests and visitors associated with that event. In council committee reports, there was a meeting of a committee tasked to review responses to a request for proposals for an electric rate study. They met prior to council last night and will be following up with interviews of the companies that bid on that project on September 9th. We did have a couple of public hearings before council last night. One involved changing a zoning map up on Burks Hill Road for the property owned by the Lutheran Church. Pastor Tim Feaser, who lives in Manita but is the pastor of the church, was the only person who spoke at that hearing. He explained the recent construction activity that the church has undertaken, which includes a sign that was provided by a donor related to that activity. Unfortunately, the sign itself was not in line with the current zoning regulations, and that has led, along with other things, to a request to rezone their property from a residential designation to a business designation. Reverend Feaser also noted that this would match up with the zoning of the adjacent property to them, which is the Hampton Inn and Suites Hotel. So churches are permitted in both districts. Essentially, the Lutheran Church's rationale was to make sure their sign was compliant with the zoning district provisions, but also to kind of help clean up the community's zoning map in a consistent manner. The next public hearing dealt with a proposal for mini storage units at 402 West Main Street. The owners of the property, Kevin Elazar, I apologize if I mispronounced your name, Kevin, and Chenye Chenyan, presented their plans as they discussed with the Planning Commission. They were the only speakers for that public hearing. The third public hearing dealt with a request from the Elks Lodge to have their property designated as being exempt from real estate taxes. That attracted 4 different speakers, the first of which was Mr. John Owen, who spoke in favor of real estate relief. He mentioned the donations of the lodge to several charitable organizations within town. Also said that the lodge contributes to the community in a unique way that no other organization does. He also cited Code of Virginia statutes that support the request, really some of them mentioning cases in which property could automatically be considered to be exempt. He noted that there was a portion of the building that could be subject to tax, but asked for that to be done in an appropriate and judicious manner. The next speaker was Justin Mummy, who lives in Roanoke and identified himself as a past president of a lodge there. He also referenced Code of Virginia language dealing with tax exemption and noted that Roanoke City granted a full exemption to a lodge there. He also cited the numerous charitable attributes of the lodge behind the request. The third speaker was Mr. Leonard Hutton, who is the current president of the lodge. He obviously was in support of the request and again noted that it's a very active organization within the community and stated that last year the Elks Lodge donated approximately $10,000 directly to the community. The final speaker was Teresa Haley, who is a resident of town. She operates a business at 136 West Main Street and leases that property from the Elks Lodge. She noted that through her business, she also provides charitable contributions to the community, both through the lodge and just at her own initiative. In particular, she mentioned a first responders program in which she contributes money that helps feed our police and fire department and other emergency personnel and to provide support to them. That concluded the public hearing section of the council agenda last night. We all followed up with a request from Liberty High School for a street closure associated with their plans to conduct the homecoming parade on Wednesday, October 9th at 5:30 p.m. Mr. Joseph Fitzgerald, who is the current year president of the Student Council Association, gave a very eloquent request and outlined the streets that would be impacted. Those streets are College Street, Peak Street, Bridge Street, and part of Main Street. For those of us who've been around for a little bit, this is essentially the same route that LHS has used for the last few years in observance of homecoming. It's essentially a rolling procession, so we're hoping that the impact on traffic will be minimized in that regard, even though it takes place at 5:30 p.m. Also of note is this is in conjunction with the 60th anniversary of the existence of Liberty High School, our hometown community school, which many of our citizens have attended and a lot of us have a personal connection to. So council unanimously approved that request. And again, the homecoming parade will take place on October 9th at 5:30 p.m. The next item of new business was a presentation by representatives of the Bedford Pregnancy Center, who are also discussing the possibility of seeking tax exemption status. Ms. Lori Willis, the executive director, spoke first. She advised that they've been part of the community since 2005. They're located at 813 East Main Street. They are a nonprofit Christian ministry providing services to women, children, and families free of charge. They've been in that particular location since 2010. Mr. Steve Arrington, who is a board member, also spoke on behalf of the organization. For more information about the organization, people are encouraged to visit their website, which is www.bedfordpregnancy.org. They also encourage people to stop by 813 East Main Street to visit and see what they do. We did provide them with the necessary application form for the tax exemption process, and we will await hearing from them at a future council date at which the matter will be taken up. Moving into the new business items, the first matter was the rezoning request from the Bedford Lutheran Church. Town Council reviewed the previous activity taken by the Planning Commission, which was to unanimously recommend the rezoning. After a brief bit of discussion, Council also acted unanimously, so that rezoning was approved. The next item of new business dealt with the request for mini storage units at 402 West Main Street. For folks who've been around the community for a while, that's the former Highs building at the corner of 4th Street and West Main Street. The Planning Commission recommended 4 conditions in conjunction with this proposal and did unanimously vote to approve it with those conditions. One of the conditions dealt with the operating hours for the access to the storage units themselves. There was some discussion about that from Council. Planning Commission had offered some general direction. Council referenced a previous similar project that was approved in the Wells Fargo building at the corner of Main and Bridge, and used that as a standard for operating hours for this proposal as well. Council's suggestion was to establish hours of operation or access by storage unit users from 6 a.m. to 11 o'clock p.m. And last night, Council unanimously approved the request with the conditions recommended by the Planning Commission and that slight amendment to the operating hours for access to the storage units. The next item of new business was the request for designation as a real estate exempt property by the Bedford Elks Lodge. Quite a bit of discussion and background about this. There is a process, and it is driven by Virginia State Code, that deals with automatic exemptions of properties. And that was one of the things that particularly Mr. John Owen brought to us. The town attorney mentioned that some of those are a little bit complicated. Ultimately, town council has the ability to designate properties as being tax exempt if they make 8 different findings of fact. Those were reviewed last night at the meeting, and I won't go through them individually. It's kind of legal and bureaucratic, but if you want to watch the rebroadcast on our media outlets on YouTube, we would encourage you to do that. Council ultimately did vote unanimously to grant exemption, to designate exemption to the Elks Lodge property with certain provisions, mainly the effective date, which would be October 1st, 2024. There was also some good discussion there about the town's billing process and some other good information about taxes in general that the general public may find interesting. So again, if you weren't at the meeting, we would encourage you to take advantage to watch the rebroadcast and see if there was anything that was of interest to you. The next item of new business was appropriation of funds for purchase of a forklift to be used by the electric department. Town council is taking a more active role in direct review and approval of operating expenditures related to our electric utility. Last night, town council unanimously approved purchase of a forklift to replace a 25-year-old piece of property at a price of $15,500. The next item of new business dealt with a write-off of real estate taxes for a property located on Grove Street near Church Street where there was an outstanding balance of $34,000, including liens, penalty, and interest on a property that has since been sold to someone and with a clear title. Essentially, the discussion there was the liability of the current owner, which was determined to be none, and any options the town might have to reclaim this revenue from the previous owner. Ultimately, on the advice of the attorney and discussion by council voted unanimously to approve the treasurer's office to write off the delinquent balance on this particular parcel. The next item of new business related to appropriation of funds for renewable energy credits. Again, this is in council's role, more directly overseeing things within the electric department operation. Renewable energy credits, for folks who may not be familiar, are valuable and tangible benefits we get from our involvement in green energy production. This relates primarily to our operation of the Snowden hydroelectric plant. And I think also we get some residual credits associated with our solar farm located out the end of Orange Street. Basically, right now, in order to promote a green energy agenda, without speaking to the relative merits of the politics there, the town does receive some consideration of the power it generates and how that is managed. We have a working relationship with the Blue Ridge Power Agency, which is an affiliation of about a dozen electric utility providers, mostly in southwestern and central Virginia. It includes several municipal utilities, such as us, Salem, Martinsville, and Richlands, along with some cooperatives, such as the Virginia Tech Power Plant and an affiliation with a group in Botetourt. In any event, the town received $12,266 for its allocation of RECs from this association with the Blue Ridge Power Agency, and council voted unanimously to accept those revenues and apply them to our expenditure line item for materials and supplies to be used in the operation of the electric department. The next item of business was another electric appropriation, this for funds for a 69,000 volt breaker at our Orange Street substation. The town maintains several substations directly. The three main ones are, well, some of the largest are Macon Street, Orange Street, and Mosley, which are connection points and where we distribute a lot of our power for our citizens. The Orange Street station is an important part of our infrastructure in the eastern part of town. That serves a lot of non-residential customers, including retailers such as Walmart. This has been a planned capital project for a while. We've noted that we need to upgrade the breakers and the infrastructure there. The current situation when we have had outages is one in which if something happens, we have to walk the line and identify a problem. And sometimes that process adds to the length of time it takes us to get power on in the unfortunate event that this substation goes off. The intention is to replace that system with a breaker that will automatically regulate things and ideally will simply blink instead of forcing a shutdown that has to be manually repaired. It's a rather expensive proposition. The total estimated project cost is $332,000. Last night, council approved appropriation of $125,092 to get that project started. And for reference sake, the piece of infrastructure we're talking about has a current estimated replacement cost of $1 million. So essentially what we're proposing to do is spend $330,000 over time to preserve the reliability of service in a facility where we have had issues before. The last item of new business related to appropriation for capital items within the electric department. There are two in particular we were looking at. One is replacement of a transmission pole. We've had a wooden pole that we've had to replace twice over due to woodpecker damage. And an interesting, at least to us, development, the vibration associated with the apparatus that's on that pole attracts woodpeckers because based on the way they were designed by the creator, they sense that there is insect activity within the wood, so they go in and go after it. unfortunately for them, there isn't any. And unfortunately for us, they end up wrecking the poles. So in order to head that off, we are working to replace wood poles that have been damaged with metal poles, which don't seem to attract the attention of the woodpeckers quite as much. The pole we're talking about replacing in this case has a cost of $6,500. The other $44,000 related to last night's request is for meters for new development. We have several exciting developments happening in town. Bedford is growing. We are attracting attention from more people, and we're gaining new neighbors as a result. Recently, Town Council approved a development between Independence Boulevard and Lowry Street that will bring about 130 new residents to our community, with new homes being built there. There are also future developments in the works. We did get notice that the owners of Governor's Hill in the southwestern quadrant of town, the vacant property next to the existing development, they intend to come forward in September to the Planning Commission with a proposal for as many as 180 housing units. In addition to the impacts on the community in absorbing these new folks in terms of traffic and infrastructure, we need to make sure we can provide basic services such as electricity, and our partners in the Water Authority also have to get ahead of that as well. That includes things like transformers and meters. We do keep a supply of meters on hand to try to stay ahead of that. Of course, the magic and the challenge there is to make sure we have enough inventory to meet demand without having so much that we have a lot of things sitting around. So, Council unanimously approved appropriation of funds last night for both replacement of a wooden pole with a metal pole, as well as purchase of additional meters in anticipation of the growth that's taking place. And on that note, that concluded the public business taken care of in council last night. Again, I mentioned just a minute ago, Bedford is a growing place. We appreciate those folks who have been here for generations and have made this place what it is and continue to contribute. We also note that we've got new neighbors coming in, and my observation is that Bedford's always been a welcoming place, and I hope we'll continue to enjoy that reputation. And also, the new folks coming in may not be as familiar with some of our traditions, but they also may have some new ideas that would benefit us. So I think it's worthwhile for all of us to reach out to the neighbors we don't know yet, or the people who are already here that maybe you haven't made acquaintance with. Say hello, get to know them. And as the new people come in, feel free to reach out to them as well and develop those relationships. Again, in my case, my family's been here for 25 years. We live in a day and age right now where people can pretty much choose to live anywhere they want to. And I know in my case, I choose to do that right here in the world's best little town. I'm glad that a lot of you do that too, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the new neighbors as well. There will be challenges associated with that, but the council is committed to addressing those head on and working together cooperatively with all citizens to make sure that we preserve our identity and see the growth that we want. Until next time, when I join you on this podcast, I hope everyone has a pleasant Labor Day weekend. I hope everyone enjoys good health. And I thank you very much for everything you do to make Bedford truly the world's best little town.